3. Let us compare our condition with Christ's upon earth. What a poor, mean condition was he pleased to be in for us. He was content with anything. For ye know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor. 2 Corinthians 8:9. He could have brought down a house from heaven with him, or challenged the high places of earth. But he was content to be in the winepress, that we might be in the wine cellar, and to live poor, that we might die rich. The manger was his cradle, the cobwebs his canopy. He who is now preparing mansions for us in heaven had none for himself on earth. He had nowhere to lay his head. Christ came in the form of a pauper, who, being in the form of God, took upon him the form of a servant. Philippians 2:6-7. We do not read of any sums of money that he had. When he wanted money, he was forced to work a miracle for it. Matthew 17:27. Jesus Christ was in a low condition. He was never high, except when he was lifted up upon the cross, and that was his humility. He was content to live poor and die cursed. Oh, compare your condition with Christ's. 4. Let us compare our condition with what it was once, and this will make us content. First, let us compare our spiritual state with what it once was. What were we when we lay in our blood? We were heirs apparent to hell, having no right to pluck one leaf from the tree of the promise. It was a Christless and hopeless condition. Ephesians 2:12. But now God has cut off the entail of hell and damnation. He has taken you out of the wild olive of nature and engrafted you into Christ, making you living branches of that living vine. He has not only caused the light to shine upon you, but into you, 2 Corinthians 4:6, and has given you a legal right to all the privileges of sonship. Is not here that which may make the soul content? Second, let us compare our temporal state with what it once was. Alas, we had nothing when we stepped out of the womb, for we brought nothing with us into the world. 1 Timothy 6:7. If we do not have what we desire, we have more than we brought with us. We brought nothing but sin. Other creatures bring something with them into the world. The lamb brings wool, and the silkworm brings silk. But we brought nothing with us. What if our condition is low at present? It is better than it once was. Therefore, having food and raiment, let us be content. 1 Timothy 6:8. Whatever we have, God's providence fetched it into us. And if we lose all, yet we have as much as we brought with us. This was what made Job content. Naked came I out of my mother's womb. Job 1:21. It is as if he had said, Though God has taken all away from me, yet why should I murmur? I am as rich now as I was when I came into the world. I have as much left as I brought with me. Naked came I hither. Therefore, blessed be the name of the Lord. 5. Let us compare our condition with what it shall be shortly. There is a time coming shortly when, if we had all the riches of India, they would do us no good. We must die and can carry nothing with us. So the Apostle says, It is certain we can carry nothing out of the world. 1 Timothy 6:7. And therefore it follows, Having food and raiment, let us be content. Verse 8. Open the rich man's grave and see what is there. You may find the miser's bones, but not his riches. Were we to live forever here, or could we carry our riches into another world, then indeed we might be discontented when we look upon our empty bags. But it is not so. God may presently seal a death warrant to apprehend us, and when we die, we cannot carry our estate with us. Honor and riches do not descend into the grave. Why then are we troubled at our outward condition? Why do we disguise ourselves with discontent? Oh, lay up a stock of grace. Be rich in faith and good works, for these riches follow us. Revelation 14:13. No other coin but grace will be accepted as currency in heaven. Silver and gold will not go there. Labor to be rich towards God. Luke 12:21. As for other things, do not be solicitous. We shall carry nothing with us. Rule 11. Do not bring your condition to your mind, but bring your mind to your condition. The way for a Christian to be content is not by raising his state higher, but by bringing his spirit lower, not by making his barns wider, but his heart narrower. One man will not be contented with a whole lordship or manor. Another is satisfied with a few acres of land. What is the difference? The one studies to satisfy curiosity, the other necessity. The one thinks of what he may have, the other of what he may spare. Rule 12. Study the vanity of the creature. It does not matter whether we have more or less of these things. They have vanity written upon the frontispiece of them. The world is like a shadow that declines. It is delightful, but deceitful. It promises more than we find, and it fails us when we have the most need of it. All the world rings, changes, and is constant only in its disappointments. What then, if we have less of that which is, at best, voluble and fluid? The world is as full of mutation as motion, and what if God cuts us short in worldly things? The more a man has to do with the world, the more he has to do with vanity. The world may be compared to ice, which is smooth but slippery, or to the Egyptian temples, which are very beautiful and sumptuous on the outside, but within which there is nothing to be seen but the image of an ape. Every creature says about satisfaction, "It is not in me." The world is not a filling, but a fleeting comfort. It is like a game of tennis. Providence bandies her golden balls first to one, then to another. Why are we discontented at the loss of these things? Only because we expect that from them which is not, and depend on them for that which we ought not. Jonah was exceeding glad of the gourd. Jonah 4:6. What vanity was it? Is it much to see a withering gourd smitten, or to see the moon dressing itself in a new shape and figure? Rule 13. Get fancy regulated. It is the fancy which raises the price of things above their real worth. What is the reason why one tulip is worth £5 and another perhaps is not worth 1 shilling? Fancy raises the price. The difference is rather imaginary than real. Why should it be better to have thousands than hundreds? Because men fancy it so. If we could fancy a lower condition as better, as having less care in it and less account, it would be far more desirable. The water that springs out of the rock tastes as sweet as if it came out of a golden chalice. Things are as we fancy them. Ever since the fall, the fancy is distempered. God saw that the imagination of the thoughts of his heart was evil. Genesis 6:5. Fancy looks through wrong spectacles. Pray that God will sanctify your fancy. A lower condition would content you if the mind and fancy were set right. Diogenes preferred his cynical life before Alexander's royalty. He fancied his little cloister best. Fabricus was a poor man, yet despised the gold of King Pyrrhus. Fabricus, content with his little honorable portion, used to despise the gifts of kings, and the Roman consul Soranus used to toil with the heavy plow. Claudius. Could we cure a distempered fancy, we might soon conquer a discontented heart. Rule 14. Consider how little will suffice. The body is only of small capacity and is easily restored. Christ has taught us to pray for our daily bread. Nature is contented with a little. Not to thirst and not to starve is enough, said Gregory Nazianzus. Meat and drink is a Christian's riches, said St. Jerome. And the Apostle said, having food and raiment, let us be content. O luxuriance, wasteful of things, never contented with its little provision, and hunger, ambitious for food sought out on sea and land, and for the glory of a sumptuous table. Teach us with how little it is permitted to lead forth our life, and how much nature seeks after. Lucan, Pharsalia 1:4. The stomach is sooner filled than the eye. How quickly would a man be content if he would study to satisfy his hunger rather than his humor?